Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Volpe Creates Show, the weekly talk show about gaming and creative technology. I am your host, Chris Volpe, joined as always by Baby Girl, who's napping over there on my desk. Pumpkin is somewhere around here. And of course, Mr. Lucas. How are you today?
Good. Tired. It's been a long week, but I'm ready for the show.
I feel like that's your answer every week now. You're just tired.
It definitely is. I work a lot.
That is, yeah, that's the adult response when it's just like, how you doing? Like, good, but tired. We're doing bowling. We're doing multivarious bowling tomorrow. That'll be
Yes, we
exciting.
are.
That was your suggestion to do like a little post GDEX team. I don't know, not team building exercise. I don't know, just fun, hang out, get to know each other more.
Oh yeah. And my fiance and I love bowling. She's gotten like a 273, so hopefully I
Oh,
see a 300 this game from her.
wow.
That's
Okay,
impressive.
Yeah,
that's like
she's
yeah, that's
she's
a whole
crazy.
other level. I
Yeah.
used to do bowling. I had my own ball and everything. And then one day I came back. This was it was just sitting around for years, and I found my mom had filled it and re-drilled it for her. I was like, well, I guess it's not my ball anymore.
What?
Um, but and of course, every week we have a special guest. I am excited for this week. We have Brett Pennings from Bowl Cut Studios. How you doing, Brett?
Good. How you doing, Chris?
Good. So thank you for being here. I've been bugging you the past couple of weeks to be on the show because I'm excited to chat with you. Also, you are a longtime GDEX exhibitor and participant, and I think
Yeah, I think since 2017, that was the first one.
yeah. And you well, before we go on, you want to give a little blurb about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am co-founder of Bowl Cut Studios, which is just a studio that I started with my brother. Um, Never really saw myself as a business guy, but when you start an indie studio, you kind of just get
Yeah.
roped into it. Um,
I
but yeah,
always
so
I always
yeah,
joke that because before this I was in healthcare, and I always joke that I left healthcare to make video games. I spend 90% of my week not making video games.
yeah, that's pretty relatable. Um, but yeah, so we there was a game we used to play called Warlock back in the day. It was a Warcraft 3 mode, and we really liked it. And I guess this is kind of just the origin of how both get started. Um, I've always been into video games since I was little. I think that's a pretty common story. And I learned how to program specifically because I wanted to learn how to make games. And so we pretty much just wanted to make Warlock, but with some twists to it, and that's sort of how Mage Quit started. Um, and I kind of got roped into going to GDEX the first time. Sort of, it was almost a fluke, I guess. Like there were three guys from Detroit that were looking for a fourth person to split a booth with, and so I kind of just tagged along last minute and set up, and then Mage Quit ended up getting Best in Show that first year. So that was it was unexpected, but very exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, well earned. Those prestigious GDEX awards. Should mention I'm also wearing
Oh yeah,
a
that's a
original
nice shirt. I like
Mage Quit shirt. Yep, it's holding up. I wear it quite frequently. It's one of the I always joke that like probably 98% of my wardrobe is like GDEX shit. I'm
Yeah.
always wearing the same shirts, but this is one of the
I
shirts that
have I have two of the shirts from 2018 that have a little mage at the top of it.
uh-huh
I have two of those, and so like I'll wear them 2 days in a row. But
nice.
it's a clean shirt. It just doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it.
We have talked. So for those who don't know, we haven't done it the past few years with as we worked with Origins. But what we used to do is for our shirts, we would talk to all the exhibitors that were going to be at GDEX and see if
Yeah.
they were interested in having a character or something on one of our shirts. So our show shirts always had this like smorgasbord of different exhibitors that were going to be at the show that year, which I really liked. I thought that was a great. I mean,
I thought that was cool too.
one of
Yeah.
my ideas, brilliant idea. But
Oh, you like how you did that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, everything's always a team effort at some point. But
Yeah.
um, we have talked about, and I was like, COVID really just kind of like screwed everything up because I was
Really
thinking
did.
about year 10 when we were in year 6 or 7. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if in year 10 we brought back the ability, like the one time ability to buy the previous year's shirts and put
Oh,
them up for sale, But
that'd
we,
also be a good way to get rid of the ones you didn't sell the
yeah, I mean,
previous year. But yeah,
we've got, most of the ones that we have left over, we don't have that many are like volunteer shirts. It's the orange ones.
Gotcha. Okay.
Uh, but I know that people like they want to collect them all, and then of course, now that we're in year 11, like some of those early stage shirts are getting a little rough. So I don't know. Maybe sometime in the future we'll open up the store to be able to buy all the previous year's shirts again. Because I think that would be a fun idea to just do that. Every not all the time, but maybe every 5 or
Would you
10
print
years.
new ones of the
Yeah,
previous years? Oh, you
yeah.
would.
We would
Okay,
we would
gotcha.
just
I
reprint
thought.
new ones.
Okay, I
No, we
thought
don't. It's not like we have a. I
a
mean,
big
I do have
stock
a
of them.
bunch. Yeah, my basement is filled with like a whole bunch of GX crap, um, but I think it would be really cool to just to bring those back. And then I've been thinking about having the shirts I have maybe turned into a quilt or something. I think
Okay.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
enough about shirts. Enough
I
about
am
GX
actually.
apparel.
I have a question about shirts before we move
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
Do you have a distribution of what sizes are the most popular at a gaming convention? Because I feel like that information would be very useful to a lot of developers who try to sell shirts at events.
That is a great question, and I could look it up. I don't
Okay,
have it offhand, but no,
because
that is a great question.
let me tell you what I discovered.
Uh-huh.
There aren't very many extra large people out there. I did so I looked it up online to try to figure out like, oh, what are standard distributions for selling shirts just in general.
Yeah.
Maybe in the US, maybe I looked that up. And they were just like, oh, just make a bell curve around large. And I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. I probably should have made a bell curve around medium because uh, I pretty much sold out of larges. But I have so many extra larges. Sold out of smalls immediately because clearly I didn't buy enough of those. It was on the bottom of the bell curve. And then mediums, I sold out of those too.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pulling up one of our documents. I don't know if this is the
Okay.
right
I'm just
one.
really curious what it is because I didn't keep track of it very well, like when we sold out of each one, but I know my bell curve is wrong.
Yeah, I know that we tend to get a lot of 2x orders for sure.
Okay.
Um,
It almost seems like more people want 2x than 1x,
yeah, that's interesting. I'm
which
trying to
is
figure out.
weird. And it might just be because I had fewer 2x, so it felt like more people were buying them.
Yeah, let me go to merch. This is fun posters, shirt. Let's see what we can get here. This is 2019. Here's our order. My God, maybe it's not. I don't. Yeah,
Okay,
I
we
don't.
don't have to do this now. You can tell me later, but
No, no.
I do think it would be helpful for other devs too.
Oh yeah, yeah. See all that stuff is really interesting because like a lot of what I'm trying to do, and I don't know if you know, but we brought Lucas on to help with GDEX. So in addition to helping out with the show here, he's helping to facilitate GDEX operations all year
Mm,
round.
okay.
And so there's all these little things that we've been meaning to do. Like one of the big ones is providing. We wanted to have like a back end, almost like store interface for exhibitors where they can get posters and big banner printing and shirts and just all sorts of merch stuff because we use our vendors and our vendors always give us like a great
Good deals.
yeah, a good deal.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Like we have all these vendors because we've been around for almost 13 years,
Yeah.
and so it's taken time to find those, and if we can save people time and effort, um so
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit uh at what was that bar that we went to? The not
Denmark.
yeah, that was it. Yeah, we talked about it a bit there. And I think I probably brought up I've been developing a bunch of tools that help me with development,
Mm-hmm.
and I imagine that they would also help other developers as well. Um, so
Yeah,
like one of them, for example, like a couple easy ones are like an email collection app that you just throw on a tablet and you have it at your booth so people can sign up for your mailing list. Like I've seen a lot of developers just use like a Google Sheet and then people just type it in there, which works fine, but you could add another level of polish to your booth if you had like a special app with like a splash screen that is themed after whatever your studio or your game is.
totally,
So
absolutely.
just it's like stuff like that.
So just for fun here, I pulled up. This is 2019's shirts.
Mm.
We ordered 400 of the normal shirts, and I know we sold out, so we should have ordered more. We had 100 of the Underworld shirts. And our
Okay.
largest order was, yeah, it was larges.
Okay. So large. Okay, it is centered around largest, but I think it's not a standard bell curve. I think it's definitely heavily towards mediums.
Yeah, so we did 130 larges, 110 mediums, 50 smalls, and then 70 XLs, and then 32 X's. But I know we ran out of those pretty quickly.
Okay.
We probably should have reversed the two X's and the XLs. Um, so
Okay. So
yeah,
you do think there are fewer people that are XL than there are 2X? Because
I
I think some people that are 3X end up buying 2X because 3X isn't available.
yeah, we did. We had 10 3X's that year.
Did they sell?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then we ended up
This
selling
is
4X's, but only you had to those were print on demand. You had to order them online. We didn't have
got it.
any
Okay.
like
So the other
site.
ones, okay, gotcha.
Um,
This is good info.
but that's no. I'll try to dig up. I don't have this year's merch numbers at all, so I'll dig up and see if I can find out because I would be curious about that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just this is the type of thing that if you get it wrong, you end up wasting money on merch. Like you just have a bunch of shirts you paid for that you can't sell now,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
if you and depending on where you get them, like we try to keep all of our shirts. Um, as a general, I guess this is a behind the scenes thing. When it comes to merch in general, we try to 3 to 5x whatever our cost is. So if our shirt is $5, we try to be somewhere in the like 15 to 25 range. We sell our
Okay.
shirts generally for 20. And I,
We made that mistake. Wait,
yeah,
we did not do that with the shirt you're wearing. There's
mm,
5 colors on it. I don't
yeah,
know if you can like tell by looking at it, but there's 5 different colors that are printed on there, and obviously the company that prints them charges per color. So I
yep,
think those ones cost like I think they cost like 12 to 14, and we
yep.
sell them for 20. So we're like, if we don't sell one, we're taking a majority loss on that shirt.
We on our I don't have a GDEX shirt, but we generally are somewhere within the $5 to $8 range per shirt
Okay.
for our printing.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, because these are the nice thing with using the screen printing like this is that they stick around. They're hardy, you know.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
They're nice quality.
every time they have to put a new color on,
Cost more.
yeah, there's gonna be a cost. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, look at all this fun stuff we're talking about today.
I know.
I'm happy. I try to keep as open as far as GDEX goes. I've always tried to be as open as we can about it. Just because I think people are curious about how to do it, and
Oh, this is good information.
we're all learning. Like I'm not an event planner. We started GDEX. I didn't know what I was doing, and so we just kind of learned everything along the way. But yeah, I think in general, when you're looking at merch, if you can hit 3x, that's usually a good place because then it covers returns, it covers the non-sales, those kind of things. Once you start cutting below 3x, it starts to get a little scary as far as inventory goes. Um,
I think the ones that Katie did, the newer shirt that you got, I think those ones are about 8. So I'm still not really in the 3X range on those. But
okay.
one thing to think about with shirts too is, yeah, that one. I think that one only has 2 colors on it, so it was substantially cheaper
Yeah.
to get printed. But one thing I think when people are selling shirts they don't realize is if you sell like a comfortable shirt, like a nicer material shirt, it might not make you as much money up front, but people are more likely to wear it,
Yes.
and then
I
that's free promotion for you.
That is something that I advocate very strongly for. I think if you're gonna go through the purchase process of buying merchandise, make it good quality. It doesn't have to be
Yep.
super expensive, but like, let's see what it is.
The ones that you guys have are Bella and Canvas, right? And those
Yeah,
that's a nice quality shirt. The ones that the
next
one you're
level.
wearing is Next Level,
Yeah, next
which
level's good.
it is.
Yeah, Bella Canvas I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
It feels nice to wear. I mean, these ones feel nice to wear too. But yeah,
Mm.
a lot of times folks will get like those stiff,
We
rougher
get like the
shirts.
Hanes ones, like
Yeah, and
just
they just
yeah,
don't.
and you don't want to wear it. It's like itchy and scratchy, and it doesn't
Yep.
have. It's not cut well.
Those are the first I send to the donate pile when I'm cleaning out my closet. So yeah, if you're going to spend time making something like make good quality, and it really sometimes, if you have a good partner, it doesn't cost that much more. You might be spending 10-20 cents more a shirt or
Sure.
something depending on
Yeah.
what you're doing. um and at the numbers we're selling, if you were selling 1 million shirts, then
Sure.
10-20 cents can mean something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. If they're gonna wear it, then you're gonna see them. I think I love when we work with Matt SuriCon, OhioCon, all these other conventions. I love it when I see GX shirts in the background of photos at
Mm,
those conventions. And I know we have people that come to GDEX who, like, their thing is every year, I want to get the shirt. I want to get this year's shirt.
okay.
So it becomes like a collector's thing. And if it's going to be a collector's thing, you want it to be good. You want it to hold up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I want to let's chat about Mage Quit for a second,
Yeah, I was
because
gonna say we're still talking about shirts after you tried to move on like 10 minutes ago.
it doesn't matter. This show, we can talk about whatever we want. But so one of the things that I mean, you got the best in show when you first came, and then you keep coming, and then this year you came, and I was super appreciative because I know you were busy. You're in the middle of a bunch of stuff, but one of the things that I think is powerful from your game is that, like, people are always playing it. Like, you walk by,
Mm.
it's an attractive game. It builds an audience, and like people are sitting there playing it, uh, and it just seems like a fun. I shouldn't say it seems like, it is a fun game. Um,
It seems like a fun
I
game,
mean, it seems like a fun
but
game. I
wait
mean,
till you sit down and start playing.
yeah,
It's not.
once you start playing, it's an onerous task that never lets up. It's like Dark Souls,
Yeah, it's
but
Dark Souls.
was this I think 2019 was PAX East, I think, and your booth was like, I don't think you had a chance to breathe during
Let's
that
see.
show.
2019 would have been, I think, when I saw you at PAX East. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Did we have we had a
is
10
that
by 20 at that booth?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So 2018 was our first PAX East, and we only had a 10 by 10 at that booth, and it was the same kind of deal. Like, we had to have a corner because of the way the booth is, so people could get in and out. And the people had to keep coming by and, like, pushing, like, managing the crowds. Just I think that the 10 by 10 built on itself more because there was less room for people to stand. So when you start getting a crowd, people want to see, like, oh, why is there a crowd over there?
Yeah.
And then it builds more of a crowd. But
It, it's it's also a loud game too. There's a lot of people that
I
are always like, yeah.
I think in general, if you have a 10 player or, yeah, 10 player local multiplayer game at a convention, it's gonna attract people just because of the sheer number of players, and just players interacting with each other in real time is. I think it's almost like an unfair advantage at a convention to have something like that.
I mean, use what works, right? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got to use what your mama gave you, and if you have a strength, then you make it work. When was your official release date for Mage Quit?
Oh, that's a fun question. So we actually launched in early access on Steam at the beginning of 2017,
Okay.
which probably sounds like it was a long time ago because it is a long time ago. It's like 5.5 years ago. That's a long time.
It is.
So yeah, we launched in early access on Steam, and it was local only at first, and there's no bots or anything for anyone to play against. So it was like, if you bought the game, and it was controller only at that point as well. So if you bought the game, you had to have controllers to hook up to your computer, and you had to have someone over to play it. So it was great. Like, if you in a party setting, it was great. And there was only 4 elements at that point. And then it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that we needed to add online multiplayer. So I spent about a year, like, we had 28 spells with the first 4 elements, and I had to rewrite all of them so that they would work over the network. And just learning how to do online multiplayer, there was a learning curve to it. I have a background in web development, so there was some, like, I understand, like server architecture and things like that, like the client server model and everything.
Sure.
So, like, that was helpful, but it was still it's so much work. So I spent
Oh
a year
yeah,
adding
it's
that, and then we patched it in. That was actually around the time of that would have been PAX East 2018. Shortly after that, we added the online multiplayer beta, and then we fully launched on Steam in October of 20. 2019. And then we also launched on Xbox that same month, actually like within a 2-day window. But on Steam, it's kind of weird because when you're in early access, your game is out already, right? And when you go to fully release it, all you're doing is pretty much just removing the thing that says this game is in early access. Like
Yeah.
they put it in the new releases section, but there's so many games that get released on Steam that you can't really like. I'm assuming they also alert people who have it wishlisted to say, "Hey, this game is fully out now."
You would
Um,
think.
yeah,
I,
but we
I,
also increased the price from $10 to $15 when we fully launched. So like that didn't really get people to. I feel like that didn't really get people to want to hop on. Like, oh, the game went up in price $5. Time to buy it. I
yeah,
don't know.
the PC space on Steam is kind of like when it comes to a pricing structure is just kind of a hot mess.
It
And
is.
the
I agree.
expectation of, Steam sales are great, but it's setting this expectation of like super cutthroat value. And it's not as bad as what happened with mobile, where there was this like
Oh
dramatic
yeah.
race to the bottom for free to
Yep. And then
play.
everything's free, and then that spurred up like microtransactions and ads. Like we're the
Yep.
really the only way to make money on mobile. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely an issue on Steam. I do think there's a sweet spot on Steam though for pricing. I think if you make your game too cheap, like the base price of your game too cheap, people will assume there's no value.
Yep.
If you make it too expensive, they're just not going to buy it. If you make it too cheap, they're not going to buy it because they're going to assume it's not worth their time. So giving it like figuring out what you think, it's not even what you think the game is worth though. It's what other people would think the game's worth when they look at it. That's how you have to price your game, and that's hard to figure out too.
Yeah. Did you nail it?
Because you could like survey people, but they're probably going to be people and they're probably going to be nice about it and tell you your game's worth $20. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, most people are always going to veer on those kind of questions. They're always going to veer low, you know. And I don't know. I haven't seen any data yet. One of the things I'm curious about is since AAA games are moving into a $70 price point for the
Yeah, I saw
norm,
that.
I don't know if that's going to shift the indie spectrum up at all.
Hmm.
Because
It
it
does
seems,
seem like they are charging more for indie games these days. Like I've been surprised like when one comes out and it's like it's 25 or it's 30 and I'm like, ooh. But I don't know, with
yeah,
inflation, what do you expect? Like
yeah.
that's
I mean, I can't remember the Witness I bought. I think it was 40. Maybe it was. I don't think it was 60. It might have been 40. I
mm,
don't know. And I just bought No Man's Sky, which I guess at this point, I don't know. You could argue if it's an indie game or not, but
yeah, they
I
had a
paid
lot of
60 for that.
funding.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I definitely think there is first of all, something I recommend is I think you should charge what you think it's worth because the world is not going to value your creations. You have to value your creations. And so that's sort of the first step. But then to your point, you do have to listen to the market, right? If you're putting something out there and it's not catching on, well, first of all, it might be a discovery issue. I want to talk about discovery on Steam
Yeah.
as a separate topic.
Yeah.
Uh, but it just might be too expensive or there's just so much stuff to play that it's kind of like, do I want to spend $20 on this thing that I probably will never get to?
Yeah.
Uh, and most of the time, the answer is going to be no, right? Um, so
Yeah.
do you feel like you priced it fairly? I mean, did you hit the sales you were hoping for? Like,
I think we did price it well actually. We had like the offline TV folks playing back in August, and we did it like they played for about a month, and it was really good for sales. Like, did you know about this? The
I think so.
Okay, so do you know offline TV like Sykkuno and
Yeah.
Valkyrie and them? Okay, so they randomly just started playing Mage Quit back in August, and so like and I didn't really know I don't really follow streamers, so I didn't really know like who they were, but someone in our Discord was like, "Oh, just want here watching Sykkuno play Mage Quit." I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then he posts a link, and there's just like 26,000 people watching. I'm like, okay, that's definitely the most we've ever had anyone watching, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so they kept playing. Yeah, played it for like a month, and then he was showing his other streamer friends. So we had a good run for a while there. And what's interesting is that they usually play like they're variety streamers, and they kind of got big. This is my understanding anyway. They got big playing Among Us. A lot of that group did.
Not surprising.
Like Disguised Toast. Like there were, yeah. Anyway, um, and they just got sick of playing Among Us. And but the price point for Among Us is $5, which I've always thought is very cheap.
Yeah.
But for what the game is, it's mostly like the gameplay is mostly in the hands of the players. Like there's not a whole lot going on, as far as I know. Like I actually haven't played them. But it's just like a social game, right? Social deception.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
I mean, it's a solid game.
So like $5 is super cheap, but I think that um, that whole group, their entire following of people who will buy whatever they're playing, they're kind of in that mindset of like, oh, I'll buy a $5 game to play it because my favorite streamers are playing it, but at $15 is a little bit harder of a sell.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't charge more than 15 for Mage Squid, even though I do think
Did you
I do
ever?
think content wise, like they're like people have thousands of hours in the game just because there's a lot of replayability, but
Oh,
that's not
totally.
necessarily apparent right away. And like I was saying earlier, it's what people think the game's going to be worth, whether or not it's going to sell, and you just it's up to you to communicate how it's worth that much through like your video for the game, like your gameplay gifs and all that stuff. Like it's there's a big part of that burden is on the developer themselves. Um,
Sure. Did you reach out to those guys to?
it's I mean, not really. It was really hard to get a hold of people who have that much of a following.
Yeah.
Um, we did do so after they started playing, I added like custom team names in for the first four streamers that played it, and they didn't know about it. But then next time they streamed it, they had like special team names, and they got like really pumped about it. There's a clip on I think on our Twitter page of them finding the team names, and like that reaction clip was all over YouTube the next day, which was really cool.
Awesome.
But no, we didn't really even attempt to reach out to them because
Should have. You never know.
I mean like
Because
just
you
like
could have put
public.
like a discount code for them or something to try to spur sales or whatever, for their audience.
We could have tried to do that through like we use well, so Steam doesn't really have this is okay. This still blows my mind that Steam doesn't have this, but like an affiliate code system where if someone uses a code to buy your game, they get a cut. Like in this day and age, with streamers being the main way for people to discover games, I don't understand how Steam hasn't like monetized. As far as I know, like right, there's
Yeah.
not like
I don't know.
affiliate system in Steam. There's not, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So we used this third party system called Exola. Have you heard of them?
Exola. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they have like a key reselling. And I guess it's not really reselling. Like you can sell keys for your game through them, and then you can also set up like streaming partners that can supply discount, or you can give them like discount codes, and then Exola will pay them based on sales. Which is slick. And I don't know why Steam doesn't have that because it doesn't seem like very tough to implement.
Yeah. Exola is interesting because they started out like 2014, 2015 as a gaming fund.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
like that was their
Like
original
kind of a
thing.
publisher ish.
Yeah. And then they started doing all these other things. And to be honest, like I talked to a couple of the guys that ran the fund, and they were nice. They were cool guys. But there was always a part of me that was like, is this thing like a scam? Like, is this thing gonna ever? Because it just seemed like they couldn't, they were kind of all over the place a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's funny that you say that because I met their reps at PAX East 2019, same PAX where you saw our booth, and they came by and they talked to Chad and I both, and after they left, we looked at each other. We're like, what do they do? Like,
Yeah.
they didn't have like a. It was so odd.
See
We
that?
did
Yeah,
we
that's the thing is they had, and I can't remember. I think they were like, oh man, is it Russian backing or like?
Yeah, I think it is Russian. I think.
Yeah, and so again, nothing against Russia. I guess at the moment it's kind of a hot
Nothing
topic, but
against Russia, huh?
yeah, no. plenty of things against Putin. Lucas cut that.
Yeah.
But it was
So
just one of those
this
things
is
where
getting political.
it was interesting. I think Putin's got better things to do than worry about this talk show. Or at least he's got more pressing things, maybe not
Yeah.
better things. But I was just always curious, like what it was going to kind of evolve into, because then they started doing like publisher connects at PAX, where
Mm,
you could like meet different
sure.
publishers. It was almost like what we kind of do with some of our portfolio reviews and stuff at GDEX. So it just seemed like they were kind of all over a little bit.
It sounds
Um,
like they have an idea guy who has ADHD, and it's just like we should do
yeah,
this, we should do this, and then they just have deep pockets, so they just do all of it.
yeah. I mean,
That's what it seems like.
it might be, and that's the hard thing about the gaming space, particularly for people that aren't in the gaming space. Even if you're in the gaming space, there's just so many angles you can go, right? You can go
Yeah.
game dev, you can go publishing, you can go streamer relations, you can go esports. Like there's just a bazillion ways you can go. You can do e-cafes, uh, YouTubers and streamers and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's just a whole bunch of different ways you can go, and it's easy, I think, to get distracted because it's almost like I see very similar things in like the crypto space, where just like all these new hot things pop up and then they fade away, and every so often something catches on. Um, the thing I do like about the gaming space in general is I've found is that the things that tend to catch on in this space, by and large, tend to be good things. You mentioned Among Us. Like Among Us blew up, right? I think Among Us is a solid, fun game made by a small, cool developer group, and it's a great game. Like, um, there are definitely weird parts of our industry. A lot of the microtransactions you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
questionable to say the least. But so you think you priced it well? I mean, you're
I
not
think so,
rolling.
because when it's on a sale, I think like we can get it down to kind of like the Among Us price point, and we did that when those streamers were playing. Like the first weekend, I guess like Saikuno played it like 4 times that week, and then that first weekend we're like, all right, we should run a sale this weekend because like a lot of people are looking at the store page. A lot of them have like the under $10 price point for when they'll pull the trigger. So we ran a 50% off sale and it did really well. And then even after they stopped playing, like Steam approached us, or I guess Valve approached us, and they asked us if we wanted to be in the daily deal slot on like the front page of Steam, and that was based on the sales that we or like the numbers that we did while those streamers were playing. So it kind of like builds on itself,
Sure.
which I guess isn't a surprise. That's kind of how
Yeah.
the whole industry works.
Yeah, that's kind of how virality works, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I want to jump away from Mage quick, but not quite yet because I want to talk about it. Is there, I guess, two things? Is there anything one that you are planning on adding, or are you kind of you feel like Mage Quit's wrapped up in a bow?
Hmm. That's a
Is there
good
anything you
question.
wish you could have gotten time to work or add or
I
adjust?
mean, if I wished I had time to do it, then I would just make the time to do it, I think. But um, no, I think at this point, 10 elements is almost too many elements. That's what we're at. We're at 10 elements, and it was kind of it was kind of sad because at GDEX we shut off like the last 4 elements just because, and like those were all the new ones that I made. Those are my favorite ones, but
Hmm.
for new people playing, they're too complicated. Like if you're just learning the game, like the Steam element has a few spells in it that allow you to create copies of yourself. So there'll be a bunch of clones running around on the screen, and visually they're identical. So like it can be confused. It's confusing to everyone, including the
Yeah,
person who cast the spell, because everyone is looking at the same screen. And
yeah,
the clones move in the opposite direction, so that way you know which way you're going because your character's walking in the direction that you're telling them to, and your clone's walking the other way. So it's a good form of information hiding on the screen. So like it's stuff like that we added, and all the newer spells are like they're more polished than the original ones because we've gotten better. Like Chad's gotten better at animation, 3D modeling. I've gotten better at like game design in general, and I guess programming as I go. But like the newest element is ice, and like all of the ice spells, like there's a ton of really cool combos you can do with it. But I was like, it's too much for new players, so we
yeah.
couldn't show any of the new content at the event.
I think that's an important thing too. Like developers get excited to show a lot of the new stuff they've been working on, but
Yeah.
you have to sort of craft what you're doing for the experience. So
Yep.
our board game that we showed, Villains, we have 20 something or low 20s factions that you can be, but we cut it down to the core factions because they're the easiest to understand and get playing while you're on a show floor at a table
Yep.
at a convention. Um,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of really interesting factions where you can like synergize with stuff in certain ways, but just for a new player trying to run one of those factions, it's just like, you know. um and I think that that's understanding the experience you're trying to craft is super important. And in a convention, you got to get people in and out
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
Let them fool around later with all the
As
crazy
much
stuff.
as you want to show off like the latest and greatest,
Yeah.
you kind of just can't if you're trying to get people to buy into what you're selling, you know.
Yeah, there's a big. This applies to every industry, but I think in gaming, in particular, there's a big sort of like ego separation you have to do when you are doing certain things. When you're creating promotional campaigns, when you're showcasing it at events or whatever, you just got to remember that like, what is going to be best for the experience you're trying to put here, and if showing your new cool 1,000 clone spell isn't going to get you there, then you got to move on to other stuff. But then ultimately you can always come back to that. And the people that groove on that initial on ramp into your product, they're the ones who will really dig in to the more complicated stuff.
Yeah,
Once you sort of get to like it.
that's exactly what has happened. At the very least, that you be like, all right, well, these stations only have the first 6 elements unlocked, but he's like, there's 4 more that you haven't seen yet. Like you can use that as a sales
Mm-hmm.
pitch, I guess. But to fully answer your question from earlier, I think at this point we might add like 1 or 2 more stages to the game, but for the most part, we're trying to spend more time on the next thing.
All right. So I think
So
that's a good transition into what's the next thing? Can we talk about anything on the next thing?
I don't know how much Chad wants me to talk about it, but I will say the combat is going to be similar to Mage Quit, like top down, but it's going to have a heavy emphasis on. I don't even want to say heavy emphasis. It's going to be PVE instead of PvP. So there'll be an emphasis on teamwork, um, but also it'll be in the roguelike genre.
Okay.
Um, so I guess one of the things I look for in a roguelike is how different the combat feels each time you play. And I feel like it's a tough balance because there's a lot of I think I think combat. Okay, so with a roguelike, you try to make it as dynamic as possible, but the more dynamic you make it, the less balanced the game ends up being,
Yeah.
and the less you have control over the user experience. So there's a delicate balance between I guess RNG when you're in a playthrough versus like balanced and fair. So we got to try, and that's just a game design problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
so
game balance is one of the fundamental monsters of game design is trying to figure out how to make it right. Do why are these the kind of games you like playing personally?
yeah, I do, yes. And that was a big thing for us with Mage Quit is we up front we knew that we liked that game, like the game we based the core mechanic of Mage Quit, the game we based that on, or the mod we based that on. We knew we liked it already, which was nice because we didn't really have a moving target. It was just like we want to make this, but it will work on controller. It'll have spell curving and a shared screen, so everyone can be looking at the same screen and display it with controllers. Like that was the main thing, and then like some map objectives, a bunch of different maps, and more spells. Like that was pretty much our goal. With this one, it's a little different because like I know I like the genre. I've played a bunch of roguelikes that I really enjoy, but you don't know if it's fun until you have a lot of the moving parts in place. Because you're playing against like AI that you
Yeah.
I remember when I prototyped like the very first prototype of Mage Quit was literally it was a cube, and we each were I think just a sphere that could throw spheres at each other, And so like there was like cast time and spell curving, and that was like all the mechanics we had at the beginning. And I was like, all right, this is actually fun just on its own. And it took me like a day to make that first prototype. So like that was nice because it was reassuring. Like, okay, we have like we were able to recreate the like what was fun about this other mod, right? But with our next game, it's different because we have to think of like, all right, what are some different weapon mechanics that the characters can have? How do we make those? How do we make those interesting and unique each time? What are all the enemies going to be? How do they interact with each other? How do they interact with the player? And then using procedural generation to make that unique and interesting each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still are you deving in Unity? Is
Yeah.
that what you Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't hopefully they don't run themselves into the ground by the time we finish.
Yeah. I mean, I full transparency, like I own stock in Unity. When they went public, I bought some, but like
Okay.
some of the news lately, I was like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're like literally snatching defeat from the jaws of victory here. Like, so hopefully they'll get
It's
their stuff
worrisome.
together.
Yeah. I'm hoping like even if they make dumb decisions, like maybe I can still use their software even if it's not officially supported.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, when it comes to the engine side, you really only have Unity, Unreal as your two big
Well,
players.
people have been touting Godot for a while now, or Godot, I think is what the developers call it.
Well,
Um,
I mean,
I
you
don't
can
know.
tout all you want, but they're not a multi-billion-dollar
They're
global
not. Yeah,
enterprise, you know.
they're not.
So I'm not saying it can't, it can't
They're
be the
like the
next thing.
Linux of game engines.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
and
great, but no one uses it.
I mean, really, I don't know if this would fly through the SEC, but Epic obviously just purchasing Unity outright would be
Ooh,
their competitive move, but
uh,
um, we'll see. And I
I
think
wonder if
Sony
that
has been
happened.
putting money into Epic, right? So
I wonder what they would do. Like, you think they would just shut it down? No, probably not.
that's a
I don't
good
know if they would do.
question. Yeah, I my guess would be that they would probably just carve it up into whatever features that they would want and put it into Unreal.
Hmm.
That would be my thought.
Okay.
But it would be very hard for Epic to justify that purchase to the SEC as it not being a anti-competitive practice. Like that would be
Yeah.
a hard
I
thing to swing.
I'm also under the impression that Unity at this point is probably a giant legacy mess. Like their code bases are probably like mostly a disaster. Just that's just my guess.
I would be I'm not a dev, so I don't know, but my guess would be that Unreal is not much better.
Yeah.
But
So does that make it okay for them to just grab
I don't
features and jam them into their own engine?
I don't know. Just start jamming things everywhere. Fortnite will get them through whatever issue they have for the moment.
Fortnite.
They're
Yo,
making
just
that
do a
Fortnite
Fortnite
money.
dance.
Do you have a time in your brain where you want to have this new project done by?
Um, we wanted to have a prototype by the end of the year. That was kind of our original goal. But we also
Was it
kind of
like a
want to get like a design doc together and a pitch. We were hoping to have something before we're going to PAX West this year, and we're
okay?
hoping to have a little more on us than just showing Mage Quit again.
I mean, PAX, and then in like 4 or 5 weeks here.
Yeah.
All right, I believe in you. I believe in you.
Yep, it's coming
Are
up.
you looking for funding for the new project then? Is that what you're trying to pitch?
That's yeah. Yeah, it's a mix. I guess we'd be looking for some money up front for development, and then I think we'd probably be doing like a multi-option pitch where it would be something like if we have this much funding, maybe we could hire a couple people, and then it would move the timeline up, right? Or with this money, Chad and I could just do it, but it would take this long, right?
Sure.
So we want that, but more importantly than just the budget, we would want. I mean, because Chad and I can like the past 3 years we've made do with like very little income. Um, that's so like that's not something we're unfamiliar with, and Chad's pretty much in a position now where he won't like once they get some tenants in their new house, like they just got a new house. I went down there for a couple weeks to help him with his electrical.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Is that what you were texting me? Yeah.
yeah, that was probably yeah. It was a bit of a mess, but we got it sorted, and I actually think they're moving in this weekend into that house, and then they're gonna have 3 roommates. So like, I mean, I'm getting way off track, but we can try to put ourselves in a situation where we don't necessarily need funding if we don't get it. But so what I'm saying is the most important part for what we're looking for is like marketing, like
Okay.
like a publisher that has good reach, um, and maybe a publisher that has published similar like games in the same vein, so they have access to players who would be interested in the title. So like maybe multiplayer roguelikes that are, in the top 10 selling on Steam. So like like that kind of
Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah.
what we're looking for. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's exciting, man. I mean, you have a product launch that's good, that's well received, you know.
I think that goes a long way when you're pitching.
Yeah, absolutely. People are always looking for whenever it's a publisher or an investor or whatever, there's that adage which is they're investing in you, right? Like they want to know that the money they're giving you is going to be well spent, and being able to show that you have some experience, if your production plan looks good. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a two phased, almost like a risk adjusted proposal.
Sure.
Um, and depending on who you're talking to, some of these, like I've talked to investors that it's like, if it's less than $10 million, they don't even want to hear about it. It doesn't matter to them. They'll give me like feedback, or I'll go out to coffee with them or something. But like,
Less
if
than
it's,
10. Okay. So
yeah,
I should be asking for more. Just
well, that's where I'm getting at is, for somebody that's in your position that has a released product, and I haven't seen your plan or anything, but
sure.
I'm assuming it's stellar. Uh,
We're still
ask
working
for
on it.
Yeah, ask for what you think you need. Like ask for a good salary for you two. Ask for whatever you need from a staffing or talent perspective. I'm working on a proposal right now, for a project, that's going to be, uh, it's going to be multiples of millions, and we're just straight up asking for what we think, because that's the other thing too. A good publisher, a good investor, they just want to know what it's going to cost to get it done. They don't want to be surprised 6 months down the road. We're like, oh, we ran out of money, or this cost more than we thought it was going to. And they're like, how did you not know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did, and they're not going to shy away. I see this a lot of time, particularly when it comes to paying yourself, where they're like, well, I don't want to pay
I don't want to ask
myself.
for too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they'll look at it and they're like, wait, you're paying yourself like 40 grand a year. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah. And they're like, dude, like double that, triple that, like they want to make sure that the people that are working on the project are getting appropriately paid, because they don't want you doing a second job. They don't want you out Ubering to cover housing costs.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that you can do your thing and not have all those extra worries. For them, that's worth the extra 30 or 40 or 50 grand to know that you're going to be dedicated to this project and not scatterbrained on these other things. So,
Makes sense.
that's something I see a lot when I look at, proposals and stuff, is people just tend to underpay themselves.
That's good
Um,
advice because I probably was going to do the same thing.
it's common, particularly when you're in the indie space, because like you say, you've been, rice and beaning it the whole time, eating ramen noodles. Um, and so you have to think about what it actually takes. And again, investors and publishers that are in the space, you're not going to scare them with, like, they're used to, San Francisco money, where they're paying, $300 an hour for dev time or whatever. So they're not going to be scared. I remember once way back, this was maybe 7 years ago, we did a DoD, Department of Defense project.
Okay.
And whenever you do anything like with the government, it's this like bazillion forms, and you got to do all this stuff, right?
Yep.
And you have to do a couple compliance forms, and then you also have to do like competitive bid forms. And I remember I was talking to the woman who was helping us sort of like navigate this, because we were working with this larger partner, And she was like, "Oh, okay. So, what are your hourly rates we're working with?" And we're like, "Oh, we do our standard rates 150 an hour." And she's like, "Oh, she's like, we don't have to do any of this then." I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah, a lot of these forms on the competitive bid side are like 400, 500, $1,000 an hour kind of things." And she's like, "If you're coming in at 150 an hour, you're below the threshold where it's like, to be honest, we don't even necessarily need to do a competitive bid on this project." Uh, so they're just
Were you
used.
like, oh, I should have said 300?
Yeah, I kind of was like, man, I should have gone for like 200. But I mean, that's 150 an hour is at that time was Columbus. That was perfectly fine for Columbus dev rates, you know? Um, but it's just one of those things where you're never quite sure. So pay yourself appropriately. They'll push back. Any good publisher or investor, they're not going to look at that and be like, this is too expensive and like walk out of the room, right? If they're
Sure.
interested, maybe they'll push back a little bit and be like, this seems a little high, but they'll work with you on those numbers.
Okay.
So for whatever that's worth, that's my thought.
No,
Um,
that's good advice.
I'm also happy to look at anything if I can offer any
Yeah,
assistance or help.
that would be great.
I want to see you guys be successful. Uh,
I
well,
have
we
a I have a friend who works at Gearbox, and she also offered to take a look. So
absolutely.
I was like, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah,
Because I've
totally.
never pitched really to a publisher. Like MageQuit was all self-funded and self-published. So
Yeah. Do you know if you want to say it on stream? Do you know what you're looking for money
no, I
wise right
don't.
now? Okay.
I don't for funding at all.
Okay.
I
Well,
I can try to figure out a time. Like we're still like nailing down mechanics and how much content is going to be in the game,
sure.
and then I can extrapolate. Once we know that, I can extrapolate how long it's going to take, and then at that point, then I can figure out
Yeah.
like what the ask would be.
Yeah. You can always step back from the timeline and work out your costs
That makes
um,
sense. Yeah.
or back out from the timeline. Um, well, we're running up on time here. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? I've had a blast. We've talked about shirts. That was thrilling conversation to start it.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about shirts for probably the first half of the show.
Is there anything else you want to chat about? I could talk for another couple of hours, but I don't want to keep you. I know you're busy.
Fair. Let me think. You said you got COVID after GDAX, right? Was it literally just you who got it and no one else?
So we put out a form to all the exhibitors and the speakers
Okay.
to see who else got it, and I got a couple people texting me where like 3 or 4 people in different studios had gotten it, but on the form itself, there was only one person who said that they had COVID after GDEX and they think it was from GDEX. Um, so yeah, I mean, you
Oh,
didn't get it, right? Like
no.
we hung out, we were like right next to each other in
Yeah,
Denmark for.
I was like, should I be worried about that? Maybe.
I mean, I picked it up before GDEX. Also, I'm running around like crazy, wearing myself down. I'm always exhausted after GDEX. I feel like I got hit by a
Your
truck
immunity goes
anyway.
down. Yeah, your immune system's kind of
Um,
suppressed.
so yeah, I give the team the week off after GDEX because it's really, it's just a burnout event. And then our electricity in Columbus also went out that week. So I was exhausted from GDEX. I had COVID, and we didn't have any air conditioning for a week.
Oh,
So that was and that was like one of the brutal hot weeks,
that's
Uh,
rough.
that was a good time. But I joke that like I think I just like, kind of sweated it all out. Like I just
Yeah,
fevered it
maybe
all
that
out.
helped.
Um, because other than how I normally feel after a GDEX, I didn't really notice any big symptoms. So
Hmm.
I am vaccinated and boosted.
Okay.
So I'm sure that helped. But yeah, I mean,
I got COVID a little bit after Christmas. I think a lot of people got it right after Christmas because
yeah,
you spend it with family and then everybody sees everybody.
yeah.
Um, and the symptoms really only lasted like a couple days. My friend let me borrow one of those pulse ox things so I could watch my oxygen level in my blood, and it didn't really
Mm.
go anywhere. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
doing
just kind of
okay.
felt crappy but like I said, who the hell knows what it was from, but I'm sure COVID
Hmm.
didn't help. Um, but yeah, I think all in all, from at least the info that I have, it seems like GDEX Origins was not a super spreader event, so that was good.
That is good.
I mean, we had masks, we had a vaccine requirement, we took our safety precautions
Yeah,
seriously.
I think that was appropriate for sure.
And then, I guess I got a question for you just for fun, but
Okay.
we haven't solidified our GDEX 2023 date. What did you think of the summer date instead of our normal fall?
This summer day. Oh, I did this go out in an email?
No, I'm saying like we did summer in this year in
Oh,
June.
got it. Yeah, you're
We're
right. It
normally
was
in
a
the
little. It was
fall.
a little earlier.
Yeah.
I liked it because I think there are a lot of other conventions that happen in the fall. At least for me. I guess there's PAX West, and then there's Youmacon, which you probably don't go to that. Well, that one's in Detroit.
Yeah, I don't go to it,
It's
but
more
I'm
of an
aware of
anime
it.
con, but that one is around Halloween time. So I remember the first GDEX that I did. It was like I had like I think there were like three conventions in like a month that were all like back to back.
Yeah.
So I like this. I think I like summer better.
Okay.
Are you
Yeah.
thinking of doing that again for 2013 or
I don't know.
2013 2023?
Yeah, 2013. To be young again.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, we're kicking around the ideas. We're not 100% sure yet. We've got
Okay.
uh the tricky thing with June from a gaming con perspective is that that's generally when E3 used to be. And then
Well.
when E3 wasn't there this year, the Summer of Games Fest, Jeff Keighley's thing happened like on our weekend. So that like ate up all the
Oh,
oxygen in the room. And some of the people we were trying to get to come out to GDEX had to do stuff for
for
the Summer
that.
of Games thing. So I don't know, originally, kind of back-ish in the day, we were around Halloween, and then we shifted it from the end of October down to the end of September.
Okay.
And that time I think seemed to work pretty well because yeah, PAX West tends to be at the end of August. And then I guess the PlayStation's not doing their thing anymore, but that was like November, December-ish.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, we're either going to do June again, which would be I think June 21st ish,
Okay.
or we're going to do end of September. So,
I
but
think June was good.
I'm
I
kind of
think
just
June was good.
asking people what their thoughts are. But
Yes, PAX West is usually the first weekend in September. So if you did last weekend in September, that would just, I mean, I guess I'd have most of the month to recover. But
mhm, yeah,
I liked the summer. I thought it went well.
I did too. I think this year went really really well. I had a good time. We even with COVID numbers keeping us lower than what we would normally be. Um, I think people had a grand old time. So I appreciate you again coming. I know you were busy and hesitant when you sent me the text that said you were in. I was like yes.
Yeah.
So I am very grateful.
We're in a weird like I think I had said we're in like a weird transition point right now where we're not really trying to promote Mage Quit because we're mostly done working on it, right? I mean we could still bring it places and promote it, but we're not actively developing it. And then we're working on the next thing in the meantime. So going to conventions cuts into development time, you know. And then if we also don't have anything to show yet or like any sort of demo of the new thing, it feels like a missed opportunity being at a convention because like, well, we should be
Yeah.
showing off the new game, but we can't yet. You know,
Yeah.
it was one
Well,
of those.
I think one of the things too, I know from because I get it from the developer's perspective, it's like, oh my God, I've been showing the same thing for year over year over year,
Tell me
right?
about it.
But from a convention goer's perspective, there's always new eyeballs
Yeah,
to
that's
see
true.
it, So there's always some benefits, but um
That's true. And some people, the return people get pumped to see the same game there again because they played it last year and they're like,
yeah,
oh, I remember playing this last year, and then they play it again.
totally.
Yeah,
And I got to buy your new shirt, so it all worked out.
true,
It
true.
all worked out. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. It's always a good time chatting with you. I feel like I owe you a couple drinks, and the next time we see each other,
I'll hold you
I'll
to
treat
it.
you.
Sounds good.
So this has been the Volpe Creates Show, the weekly talk show about gaming and creative technology. We are
And
on the
t-shirts.
and t-shirts, always the t-shirts. Um, we are on Twitch at twitch.tv/Volpe Creates. Also, we are on the YouTubes if you want to watch it there. You can join us on our Discord at volpecreates.com/Discord. I am your host, Chris. I am incredibly surprised that neither Baby nor Pumpkin have bothered me during the session. They're usually like always on me wanting something. So Pumpkin wants to play with her chasies or whatever. So But baby is over there. She's sleeping. Pumpkin is back there sleeping. On behalf of Lucas and myself, I want to thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week.